few years ago I did a project on the so-called non-users of cultural venues in Manchester. So it's a project about participation and non-participation, and that's developed into a project on everyday participation, the idea of ordinary, mundane practices and their significance, counterposed to the sort of traditional formal activities that are associated with culture, like visiting museums and art galleries. The findings really are that those people who don't count themselves as cultural participants often do participate. They do things like paint in their attics, they play musical instruments, but they do it on their own terms, behind closed doors if you like, and they feel they're either distanced physically from institutions, so they live too far as they see it to go into the city to the musical venue, or they feel alienated by those places. The other main group that I found were people you might call everyday participants, and these are people who don't participate in traditional cultural activities and they're not interested in them at all, but that doesn't matter. You know, they have their own vibrant social networks and they do activities which you could think of broadly as cultural, things like shopping, walking the dog, gardening, breeding birds, a whole range of hobbies and interests that are very significant for people but aren't included as cultural forms of cultural participation. And you find in fact that even though they're not paid much attention to in terms of their culture by the mainstream institutions, they have very rich and varied lives. They practice all kinds of interesting things, and social relationships through their practice is very meaningful. The assumption, I think, is that those people who don't go to museums, galleries, theatres, musical venues, there's something wrong with them. They're deficient. And so the idea of including people means that you're marking off certain things as acceptable and you're marking other things off as unacceptable, illegitimate, and you have to sort of save people from themselves in a sense. So we're working in 6 different areas in England and Scotland. We are taking a sort of inductive, ground-up approach to find out what kinds of things people do in their spare time and how it matters to them. And in terms of underpinning economic activity in a broader sense, what does a creative economy really mean, and how place matters. And I think that comes from my original interest in Manchester. And so our first case study in the Understanding Everyday Participation project is actually in North Manchester, in the neighbouring wards of Cheetham and Broughton. The kinds of things that are most accepted by government and policymakers are surveys, big numbers, quantitative methods. But we are mixing qualitative and quantitative methods with techniques like social network analysis, so we can get a better sense of the depth and range of participation. Well, Manchester features in my research because it's a central concern of the research centre. Major cultural institutions, and also culture has been at the forefront of the city's rebranding. It's a diverse city, but also areas have particular profiles and characteristics. So we work with communities and different publics at a number of different levels. People in their own streets, in their parks, talking to them in their homes, and then feeding stuff back to them, feeding our results back to them, trying to get them to interact with what we produce. Most people now live in cities, so it's where most of us hang out and make our lives and reproduce and so on, and participate. What's particularly interesting is the way that cities create identities, and different parts of cities complicate those identities.